I want to talk about what led to at least the initial initiation of that warrant, and that was the familial DNA that we first learned about back in the Golden State Killer days, guys. Jeffrey Wolf was with me, Alaleh Kamran. So I've got here, we believe it was one of the, I'll call the lesser known sites. It wasn't 23andMe, it wasn't Ancestry.com. I think it might have been GED Match, which was the one also used for the Golden State Killer. My point is that people sign up for these all the time. They pay their whatever the fee is. They don't really realize what they might be doing because law enforcement just taps into the database. They share the DNA they found at the scene, which didn't show up in CODIS or any more traditional law enforcement database, but they find a hit in these, I'll call civilian databases. And in this one, GED Match, it does tell you, if somebody bothers to read through it, we have taken steps to protect user privacy and data security, including offering the option to opt out of law enforcement searches, which means unless you actively opt out, you're in. You're in the mix. Now, personally, if they can find a criminal based on my DNA, God bless them. I'm fine. I'm not looking to protect anybody in the family if they've done anything wrong. But Alaleh, what do you think about this form of law enforcement? It's been controversial. It is more assailable than traditional DNA, but what are your thoughts?
Okay, so it depends on your personal feelings as a citizen. We cherish our right to be free from search and seizure. We cherish our way of life to have privacy. So it's a personal choice, and it is a personal responsibility. When we submit our DNA to any kind of a database, I think it is part of our personal responsibility as a citizen to safeguard that right of privacy that we cherish so much. But if we're not going to care, and if we're not going to cherish it, and we're not going to safeguard it, then the other side of it is that some law enforcement agency is going to use our evidence that we failed to secure to do their investigation. I'm not so sure that it is wrong by the police department to use what is available at their fingertips to conduct their investigation. That's why they're there. They have the law. As long as they follow the law, God be with them. You know, they have to do a job. But I think personally, as private citizens, we need to do what we are obligated to do on our end to safeguard our personal liberties.
Yep, I think there's a pretty good chance people don't read that stuff. If they're into it, they're into it, they pay, they do their thing. I just think it's important, maybe read that so you can make the choice that you suggest, Alaleh.
Absolutely.
So, Jeffrey, we know what happens then. They get this connection, now they got the guy in custody, they're going to get his DNA, and then bing, they can match it to what they found at the site. Is that your understanding of what might happen here?
Well, it's so much more nefarious than that because it's not necessarily his personal choice to put his DNA on there, and because he didn't protect it, he's not doing his duty to himself. They are going at people up to the fourth degree, and I'm sure it'll move further out over time. So that means that my fourth cousin in some city who I've never heard of, I've never met, they decide they want to know what their 23andMe is or any of these sites, and God forbid I've done something, suddenly I am caught by some relative's decision. This is within the bounds of the law, okay? But what's within the bounds of the law doesn't make it right. This is a privacy interest that we all have. It'd be as if my relatives could suddenly give the password to my phone and let the cops into my phone. No, this is mine. I choose who gets to see it. My DNA should be no different. To say that you can go in and let somebody else's choice, who you've had zero say-so in, decide what happens to your DNA is ridiculous. It's as if my neighbors could put my trash on the corner for me and decide what I leave out there for public viewing. This is really dangerous. This is the wave of the future. This is why I have begged my wife not to do this, and she still did it, because you never know who you're turning in and for what. And that's a huge, huge problem. It's something that privacy advocates are not involved in. It's something our Congress is not talking about, and it's something that we should be, because if we do value DNA as evidence, we need to make sure, number one, it's above board. Like you said, they don't have the same storage requirements that the government does. And number two, we need to make sure that our DNA is private in the sense that it's not always going to be law enforcement digging their claws into it. It's going to be eventually private companies digging their claws into it to use DNA as they see fit. And you're right, nobody reads this fine print. Nobody reads when you get an email saying that the fine print's been updated. Okay. And you can't be expected to. It's too long. Most people are not lawyers and they can't even understand what's in front of them. This is so dangerous, and I couldn't be more against it if I tried.
Yeah, I got that feeling, Jeff. I'm starting to wonder about your background. So it makes me wonder, too, what the overall philosophy might be from the public. I would think until we start seeing, and it could happen, a lot of arrests that end up with not guilty verdicts based on the trail they used, the DNA to get there. When we find, the Golden State Killer after decades found guilty as a result of this familial DNA to track him. We have now Brian Kohlberger, and there have been many others. If he is determined to be the guilty party in this case, I think the general consensus across the country is going to be, I'm okay with this. I'm okay if they use this. I really need to make a decision for me and myself and my family. But assuming I'm okay with it for my purposes, I'm okay with it for law enforcement purposes.